Hi everybody, my name is Olivia Vota, and today we're going to make some bread. Well, I'm going to tell you what you're going to need to make some bread first. This is going to be an everyday sourdough. This is a really basic recipe. I would say start here. If you're new to baking with sourdough, this is where I would suggest that you start. Now, my family doesn't eat a whole lot of white flour. I don't bake with a lot of it, but I think that it's a lot easier to learn to bake with sourdough starter with white flour. Also, I recognize that not a lot of you might have a wheat grinder at home or wheat berries to grind. And right now when things are so crazy, it might be really hard to get something like that. So you probably do have white flour, and that's where we're going to start. Now, another reason why it's okay to start with white flour is that maybe you're used to eating white bread, but you'd like to maybe move towards eating more whole wheat grains, right? One way to do this is to introduce this recipe first. Get your family to love this artisan bread, because this is an artisan recipe, and then little by little sneak in some whole wheat flour, and over time they won't even notice it. So I'll teach you how to do that as well. So let me show you what ingredients you're going to need for this everyday white sourdough. You're going to need some bread flour. Now, if you don't have bread flour, you can always use all-purpose flour. It's okay. I prefer bread flour though, because it has a higher protein content and it makes for really strong gluten, so that when your artisan bread rises, it's really nice and tall. And so I prefer bread flour. But again, right now, if you have a hard time finding it, it'll still taste good. Your bread is still going to taste good. It's just, good, better, best. What for this would be good would be, hey, use some all-purpose flour. Best would probably be your high protein bread flour. You can get bread flour at any grocery store. It says bread flour, and it's relatively easy to find. You're also going to need your own Eve, your own sourdough starter. You already should have fed it the night before, or whenever you're gonna bake. So if I were to bake, if I'm gonna bake in the morning, then I feed Eve the night before so that she's ready to go. She's nice and bubbly and alive and ready to rock and roll by the morning. If I'm gonna bake at night, then I pull Eve out of the refrigerator in the morning around 7 o'clock, and I feed her then, and I sit her on the counter all day long, and so that she's ready to bake by the time I'm ready in the evening. You're also going to need unfiltered water. I've got that here, and some sea salt. You're not going to use a lot of it, but you definitely need some sea salt. Okay, so these are the ingredients. This is all you need. Isn't that awesome? There are no preservatives. There's no dough conditioners. You don't need any of that to make this loaf. You just need flour, your yeast, water, and salt. That's it. So I'm going to put these things to the side so that I can show you the equipment that you're going to need to do this. As I've talked before, you definitely need a scale, okay? The recipes that I typically work with are use grams, and I just find that I'm more successful when I can control the quantities that I'm using by using a scale. All right, so you're gonna need a scale. Just a basic scale is fine, kitchen scale. And then you're gonna need some kind of container, proofing container. If you don't have a proofing container with a lid, that is okay. You can use a bowl. Maybe your bowl has a lid, a large bowl in which your dough can expand, or maybe if it doesn't have a lid, you could use saran wrap. But I bought these at a restaurant supply store in Tucson, and they've been great. What I love about them is that I can see, they're clear, so I can see really well. And I'm also able to see how much my dough is rising, and it has a lid. So I like these containers. Okay, so you've got your container, you have your proofing container, you have your scale, and then what you're also gonna need is my favorite spatula. This is Daddy Long Neck. I've named it that, Daddy Long Neck. And it's just a long, narrow spatula that can get into my quart-sized jars easily and do the job that I needed to do. Okay, you're also going to need some bench scrapers. I have a plastic one that I like to use, and then I also have a metal one, and I use them differently. Typically, when I'm ready to start working and the dough has already been formed, the metal one is longer and has a sharper edge, so it's easier for me to lift and move the dough around. But some scrapers would be fantastic. I would also recommend a Sharpie. black is fine, any color you have, to write on the lid of your proofing container, because I have a lot of stuff going on. I homeschool my kids, and there's just a lot going on in our lives. So sometimes I forget when I've started things. And as soon as I start my loaf, I put the time, okay? And that way it helps me keep track of when I need to do stuff with the dough. So I already said a Sharpie. Then you're going to need a proofing basket. Now, I didn't start off having these, awesome wooden proofing baskets. I just started using a regular bowl, metal bowl, and you can use that too. The only challenge that I found, which is why I eventually bought real proofing baskets, is that my dough would sometimes get stuck to the metal. You could also use glass, but you'll have the same problem. So you will have to flour these bowls really well, but because it's metal, it slides right off. But I mean, as long as something gets on it, it'll make the job of holding your dough easier. But if you can, I would recommend investing in a couple of proofing baskets. To go with the proofing basket, you're going to need some stone ground white rice flour. Bob's Red Mill makes this, and I like it, and so I just keep it in a jar, and when I need it, I just flour my proofing basket, and my dough doesn't stick. You're also going to need some kind of towel to cover your dough when it's resting, and any towel will do. Okay, so now we get to the really fun part. You're going to need to make artisan bread. Because you don't have access, most of us don't have access to the kind of oven that can release moisture into the environment, or that can get to really, really high temperatures. We have to mimic that environment as best we can. And one way to do it is by using a Dutch oven. Now, here, if you don't have a Dutch oven, it's going to be a little hard to get the same results that I'm going to show you that we can get. But if you don't have it, it's okay. You can still bake an artisan loaf on like a pizza stone or even a cookie sheet. It's just going to look a little bit differently than the kind of bread that I'm going to be making with a Dutch oven. So I was fortunate enough to find this Dutch oven at a thrift store, and it has been the biggest treasure find I've ever had. I like this version because I actually bake this way. When I'm ready to bake, I will put the dough on here, and I like that it's flat, so that I don't burn my arms when I'm lowering the dough. You'll see in the videos that will be coming up what I'm talking about. But if you don't have something like this, and I only have one of these, you can use a regular Dutch oven that maybe you use when you go camping, and that's fine too. This is what I've used for years as well. So this is just a Lodge Dutch oven that I use, and you'll see though that this wall is pretty high. So when I lower my dough into it, this has already been preheated and it's hot. I have to be really careful that I don't burn my hands when I'm lowering it, or that I don't drop it because I'm scared I'm going to burn my hands and then damage the dough, right? So, but it's absolutely essential, because by putting this heavy lid on top, you allow the moisture to be retained, and you create a similar environment that you're going to create, that professional bakeries can recreate or can create. And that's important to get that nice spring. That oven spring is just awesome, and the Dutch oven is what's going to create that oven spring. So because these are really hot, you obviously need some good oven mitts to protect. Long ones are best because you want to protect your arms again, and these are essential. The last thing I would say is you're going to want something to be able to score your bread with. The purpose of scoring bread when you're making artisan bread is that you have a lot of gases that have been building up throughout the whole fermentation process. And when you bake, those gases need to go somewhere. And to avoid blowouts on the side, similar to baby diapers when they have, blowouts, babies have diapers, or they have blowouts. You don't want that. So you want to direct where those gases are going to go. And the way to do that is by using some kind of sharp razor. This is the one that I have. I just purchased this online, and it's called a Lame, L-A-M-E. It's French for razor, razor blade. And this is what I use. It extends, right? This tool extends my ability to be able to use the razor, and it protects me from cutting myself because I've done it before. So if you don't have this, you certainly could use just a serrated knife, a really sharp knife. Whatever you do, you want something that's going to be really, really sharp. And that's going to give you some beautiful artwork as well. So it's not only a functional thing to score your bread, isn't just functional, it can also be really beautiful. You can have some beautiful scoring, and you'll see that when we make this bread. So I think that's it. I think these are all the things you're going to need. Go and gather everything and get ready, because the next video is going to show you how to get this dough started.